What's going on, Orlando North students? This is Pastor Duran, and tonight is Wednesday, and we are going to be finishing up our series on Doubt It. This is week 3, and we've been talking about having questions about our faith and what that looks like and what faith is and what faith isn't. And so we're going to be wrapping it up with a story about Gideon. Now, before we do that, I have a couple of announcements for you. First, it is almost August. This is our last Wednesday in July, and August is right around the corner. And August is usually back to school month. But since we still can't meet in person, there are a few things that we are still going to do to celebrate going back to school. Woo! Now, I know some of you guys are not excited about going back to school, but just so that we can do something for you, add a little bit more fun to your life, hopefully, we got a couple of things planned. We have a couple of things planned for you. First, we're going to be doing something called Hot Ones. Now, if you have not seen Hot Ones, it is a YouTube show where they eat hot wings, and as the questions get harder, the wings get hotter. So we're going to do the Pastor edition. It's going to be myself, Pastor Mia, Pastor Javi, and Pastor Rob. And what I'm asking you guys to do is submit us some questions. The link will be on our YouTube page, and it'll also be in the comments for you to click on and submit your questions to us so that we can have questions to go over and to go through. And it is going to be a lot of fun because we're going to have some really, really hot wings. So we're hoping that the questions get harder so that we can get to those really hot wings and we can see who can actually withstand those wings. Secondly, we have some very special friends of mine coming to help us out on Zoom. David and Kylie Knight, they're illusionists, they're magicians, so they're going to be doing a special show just for us, just for Orlando North students. And then afterwards, they're going to have an exclusive Q&A session, an exclusive question and answer session just for Orlando North students. So you're going to want to be a part of that. And then we have a game night coming up, and then we have a random giveaway coming up. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff to celebrate going back to school. We're going to be celebrating it the entire month of August. So this is back to school month, Orlando North Student Edition, and it is going to be a lot of fun. So be sure that you're checking your emails, and if we don't have your email, be checking your phone. And if we don't have your phone, then also check our social media accounts because we're going to be blasting it everywhere. You're going to want to be a part of that, and stay tuned for more information. So this is week 3 on our series, Doubt It. We're going to be finishing it up with this series tonight. I'm going to be talking about Gideon. Now, before we get into Gideon, I just want to talk about a few things. So first, in nearly every area of our life, investigation it's important. It's something that we do. It's something that we need to do, what we want to do. We investigate what colleges we want to go to. We investigate which school has the best football team, which school has the best basketball team, which sports team is our favorite, what movie theater we want to go to, what car we want to buy when you're old enough to drive and actually buy a car, what Fortnite skin you want. You investigate everything in your life. And so faith should be no different. We shouldn't be scared of our questions, of our doubts, and our fears when it comes to our faith in God, because God is big enough. He's big enough to handle our doubts, and He's big enough to handle our fears. And so the past 2 weeks, we've been looking at what it means to have questions, what it means to have doubts, and what it means to have fears concerning our faith. And if you take anything away from this, I hope that you take that it is okay to have questions. It is okay to have doubts. And it is okay to have fears when it comes to your faith in Jesus Christ. That is okay. It's perfectly normal. It doesn't mean that you're losing your faith or that you're not a Christian. What it means is that you're normal. You're a real person with real questions, real doubts, and that is okay. And God is big enough to handle those questions. He is big enough to handle those doubts, and He's big enough to handle those fears. So for us to close this out tonight, what we are going to be looking at is the story of Gideon. Now, Gideon is found in the book of Judges chapter 6. And before we get into the specific verses where Gideon is talking, I just want to give you a little bit of background. So in Judges chapter 6, the Israelites are dealing with these group of people called the Midianites. Now the Midianites used to come down and they used to terrorize the Israelites. They'd come down, they destroy all their crops, they destroy everything that they had, and they would take all their money, they would take all their crops, they take all their animals, they destroy everything that they had, and then they would run away. And they would leave the Israelites with nothing. They'd have nothing at all. And they do this about 2 to 3 times a year. And it was like clockwork. They knew when they were coming, but they couldn't do anything to stop it. So now enter Gideon. So Gideon is that time of month where the people are coming down and they're raiding the land and they're taking their crops and they're taking their animals and they're stealing and they're robbing and they're killing everything in the land where the Israelites are. And so now enter Gideon. So Gideon is here and he knows they're coming. So he grabs some wheat and he takes it to a wine press. Now, a wine press is where they used to make wine. They still make wine, but back in the day it was this little area where they put grapes in, and they used to stomp on the grapes to make the juice and all those kind of things. So this is the wine press. And in this wine press, there were no grapes this time of year, but it was empty. And so he put wheat in there. And what that would do, that would allow him to hide the wheat from the Midianites. And so he's in this place and he's stomping on the wheat and he's hiding it and he's afraid for his life and he's doubting everything that God promised the Israelites at this time, and he doesn't know what to do. And as he's stomping on it and as he's worried and as he's fearful, and I'm sure he's angry, he might even be crying because he doesn't know what to do. He's about to lose everything that he's worked for, everything that he has, and he's coming to this point where he is stuck in a wine press, hiding. And he's afraid. And so as this is going on, an angel of the Lord appears, and it says in Judges chapter 6, and I believe it's either verse 5 or verse 6, it says that the angel comes down and he stops by the terebinth tree that was owned by Gideon's father, Ophrah. Which is interesting is that the angel of the Lord comes down and he appears to the tree exactly where he knew Gideon would be. Now, out of all the trees in Israel, let's not talk about the world, all the trees in Israel, the angel of the Lord comes down to this specific tree that's owned by Gideon's father. He knew where Gideon was. He knew that Gideon had doubts. He knew that Gideon had fears, but yet he knew exactly where Gideon was. And that's important. We'll come back to that. So we have the angel here. He comes down to the tree. Gideon's hiding in this place, and he's stomping, and he's hiding, and he's afraid. And then the angel of the Lord comes to him, and the angel of the Lord says, "Be strong and courageous, you mighty man of valor." Another way to put it, it would have been able to say something like, "Be strong and be courageous, you mighty man of strength, you mighty warrior. Be strong, be courageous, because you're a mighty warrior." Now, Gideon is probably looking perplexed and confused at this moment because he's like, I am in a wine press. Do you not see where I'm at? Do you not see what's going on? I'm afraid for my life. I am in this wine press. I'm hiding. I'm shaking. He's probably crying. And now you, the angel of the Lord, comes and you say to me, "Be strong and courageous, you mighty warrior." You got the wrong person, because I do not look mighty right now. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what you see in me, but I am not mighty. And so then Gideon has a couple of questions for him, and that's where we're going to pick up. And he says, "And Gideon said to him, 'Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us,'" check out the question, "'why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to us, saying, Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and given us into the hand of Midian.'" So Gideon is here and he's talking with the angel. He's like, "How in the world can you say that to me? Please, if the Lord is with me, why in the world am I hiding from the Midianites? Why in the world am I trying to hide the food that is rightfully mine, the food that we've worked for? Where is God? Where has God been all these years that we have been fighting with Midian? Where has God been? And we're losing everything that we have, everything that we worked for. And we hear about all these great things that God has done, but where is God?" Now, that's an interesting question that some might be asking even now while we're dealing with COVID and everything that's going on. And some families are having a hard time. Some families have lost some things, and some people have lost their graduation days. I mean, there's been a lot of loss right now. And you could be there yourself. You could be saying, "God, where are you? I heard about all these great things you've done in the Bible. My parents have told me about these great things. I've heard about these great things from Pastor Rob. I've heard about all these wonderful things you've done. But where are you? I don't see you in the middle of this COVID-19 mess. I don't see you in the midst of everything that's going on right now. I don't see you." And you could be like Gideon right now, asking yourself, "God, why are all these things happening to us? God, why is all this going on? God, why? Now, I want you to notice what happens. So we're going to continue now. So not just verse 13. We're going to jump down because he's still asking him questions. Verse 14, verse 15, verse 16. He goes all the way down. He's asking a whole bunch of questions. And then we get down to verse 20. Verse 20 is extremely important. So Gideon has all these questions for the angel, and they all boil down to, where has God been? Why is all this happening to us? Why have I not been able to see God? Why have I not been able to feel God? Why have I not been able to hear God if he is with us? So let's jump down to verse 20. So he has all these questions, and then he says to Gideon, okay, so you have these questions. Go ahead, this is how you can know. And the angel of the Lord said to him, he said, take the meat and the unleavened cakes and put them on this rock and pour the broth over them. And he did so. So Gideon had all these questions. So the angel of the Lord answers him. He says, why don't you do this for me, and I will show you, I will answer you. And so Gideon does this. He grabs the meat. He grabs everything that the angel tells him to grab. He puts it on this rock. The angel extends his hand or extends his staff, and he consumes what's on that rock, letting him know that he was a messenger of God. Now you see, there's three interesting things that I want you to notice here as we wrap up tonight, as we get ready to wrap up our series on Doubted. The first thing that happens is that God knew exactly where Gideon was. Gideon was afraid. Gideon had questions. Gideon had doubts. But God knew exactly where he was. And that's the same for you. God knows exactly where you are. You might have questions. You might have doubts. You might have fears. But God knows exactly where you are. He knows your address. There is nowhere that you can get away from God. There's nowhere that you can hide. There's nothing that you can say. There's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can think that's going to separate you from God. So don't be afraid of your questions. God knows exactly where you are. So please feel free to ask God your questions. Please feel free to vent your frustrations. Please feel free to let him know what your doubts are. That doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you're going down the wrong path. What that means is that you're normal, that you're a human. We all have questions, we all have doubts, and we all have fears. But the difference is what we do with those fears. What do we do with those doubts? What do we do with those questions? We take them to God. So the second thing that I want you to notice is that once the angel showed up, that he brought his questions to God. He took them to the angel. He's like, look, I don't know where God is. I don't see God. All these things are going on. Everything's going up. Everything's going down. I don't know what to do. I'm over here hiding in this wine press. These people from these Midianites are coming down and they're stealing stuff from us, and I have nothing left. Where is God? You notice the angel didn't get upset. The angel didn't get angry. He didn't get mad because he was being questioned. But that's the same with God. God is not going to get upset. He's not going to get angry. He's not mad that you have questions. He can handle your questions. He can handle your doubts. He can handle your fears. So don't be afraid to voice how you feel to God. The third thing I want you to notice is that the angel answered Gideon's question. He answered him. Now, there are going to be times where God will answer you. He'll answer your doubts. He'll answer your questions, and he'll answer your fears. But let me tell you that that's not always the case. There will be times where God won't answer your questions. There will be certain doubts that you have that God might not answer. There will be certain fears that you have that God might not deal with. And that's okay, because if we go to the New Testament, we're going to take up the story of Paul. So Paul is praying and he was like, I have this issue. I have this thorn in the flesh. And I prayed forever that God would take it away from me. But then God spoke to him and he said, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. So what does that mean? That means God's grace is enough for you. So there will be times where you have doubts, you have fears, you have questions that will not be answered. But I will tell you that God's grace will help you through those things. God's grace will help you deal with those things. It might not give you the answers that you're looking for. It might not give you the answers that you want, but it will give you grace. And the fourth thing that I want you to know before we close tonight, that even though when the angel found Gideon, he said to him, you mighty man of valor, you mighty warrior. Gideon was not a mighty warrior at that time. But by the end of our story, Gideon is definitely a mighty warrior. He defeated the Midianites. He defeated his enemy. He defeated that person that caused him to have questions, doubts, and fears. So to wrap this up, I want to let you know that God will give you victory. There are times where God will give you victory over your doubts, over your questions, and over your fears. There are times where he will answer you. There are times where he will give you the strength to make it through your fears. There are times where he will give you answers to your doubts. There are times when he will guide you through your questions. And it is at those times where you'll realize that what God said at the beginning is true about you when you get to the end. So when God says that he is the same yesterday, today, and forever, he means it. So that means if you have questions today, you might have questions tomorrow. But it doesn't matter because he's still the same. He has the same answers that he had yesterday and the day before. God will see you through. Your questions, your doubts, and your fears do not bother God. They do not concern him. He is not worried about them. What he's concerned about is you. What he thinks about is you. And he knows that if he can get to you, if he can get to your heart, he can help you navigate all those other things. The angel of the Lord, when he was speaking to Gideon, was speaking to his heart. Because above all, Gideon was just afraid. He thought that he was inadequate. He was afraid that he wasn't up for the task. And what the angel of the Lord was doing, he was speaking to his heart. He was saying, I see you. I see the real you. I know the real you. I know you have doubts. I know you have questions. I know you have fears, but I know the real you. And God is saying the same thing to you tonight. He might be asking you to do something with your life that you are like, it is so big, I don't know what to do. He might be telling you to take a step that you're afraid to take. He might be telling you to go away that you're afraid to go. But I'm telling you right now that God knows where you're at. God's not afraid of your doubts. God's not afraid of your fears. God has enough grace to help you get through it. And by the end of it, if you will listen to God, if you allow him to guide you, if you allow him to lead you, if you allow him to direct you, even in the midst of your questions, even in the midst of your doubts, even in the midst of your fears, I promise you that he will get you to the other end. He will get you to where he promised he would get you to be. So if he's telling you to do something, if he's calling you somewhere, if he's saying, hey, I need you to finish school, and you're like, man, school is so hard. I'm tired of tests. I'm tired of this virtual online learning. I'm not able to be with my friends, and this is just, it's a mess. If you lean to God, he'll be able to help you with that doubt and that fear. He might be saying, hey, it is time to get ready for college. You need to be thinking about going to this school. And you need to be thinking about becoming a doctor or a lawyer or a pastor or a nurse or a pilot or a police officer. And you're like, I don't know if I'm able to do that. But if God is calling you to that thing, I'm telling you right now that he is able. His grace is sufficient to help you get through those things. So let me pray for us before we go tonight. Having doubts, having questions, having fears is not the sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're growing, that you're trying to understand, and you're trying to embrace God more and more. Let me pray. God, I thank you so much for my students. I thank you that they're called to do great things. I thank you that they're called to be doctors and lawyers and teachers, and they're called to be in the military, and they're called to be in politics, and they're called to do all these mighty things. And even though they're called, they have their questions, they have their doubts, they have their fears. I thank you, God, that instead of running from you when they have those questions, when they have those doubts, when they have those fears, that they run to you with those questions, with those doubts, with those fears. And God, you might not always answer those questions, but I know for a fact that you never leave them and you never forsake them, that you know exactly where they are, just like you did with Gideon. That sometimes you will answer them, just like you did with Gideon. And by the end of it, if they will lean into you, if they will give you their heart, if they will trust in your plan, that you'll get them to the other side, whatever it is that you called them to do. Hey guys, so before we go, I want you to remember that for the whole month of August, we have a lot going on. We have every Wednesday night is packed with something. So we're going to be having a giveaway one night. We're just going to give away, I don't know, we'll give away something. I can't say what it is yet, but we're going to be giving away something nice on one of the nights. And then the other night, we have our friends David and Kylie. They're going to become, I'm about to say musicians, but they're magicians. They have a really cool show planned. And then at the end of it, you'll be able to ask questions and things like that. And then we're going to have the hot wing challenge. I really, really, really want to do this. I love spicy food. So I'm so excited to challenge the other pastors just to see if they can handle it. And then finally, we're going to have another game night going on. So we got all these things planned for August. I know right now that everything's up in the air. I don't know when we're going to meet again, but guys, I want to let you know that I'm praying for you. I love you. I cannot wait to see you guys again in person. And when we do get in person, I can promise you this, it is going to be a party. But until then, guys, I hope that you take care. I love you. I miss you. God bless.